So it's been a while since I've done a series review, and with it being May, it's almost as if the stars have aligned. It's almost as if the stars have aligned for me to talk about one of my favorite franchises of all time. And even though this particular franchise has been more bad than good since '99, today we are gonna start with the good. Anyway, without any further ado, let's jump right into... Just give me 1 second. It's hard to believe that we're still somehow in the height of the Star Wars craze, 45 years after A New Hope released. Yet here we all are, anxiously awaiting the arrival of Kenobi.
Hello there.
But when you talk about Star Wars, you of course have to start at the beginning.
No, Mrs. Stay. Mr. called Jar Jar Binks.
No, not that beginning. We'll get to that piece of shit.
Now get out of here.
I'm of course referring to the movie that started it all, A New Hope, or simply Star Wars from 1977. And unless you've been spending your entire life just avoiding pop culture, you've probably seen this movie, or you're at least aware of its existence. And also, if you're avoiding pop culture and movies, I'm not sure why you're watching this video, but hey, I appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe. So, Star Wars tells the story of Luke Skywalker, a young moisture farmer from Tatooine that learns that the town weirdo Ben used to be Obi-Wan Kenobi, a Jedi Knight who fought alongside his father during the Clone Wars. Wanting to learn more about his father, who totally died years ago, and after accidentally seeing a help message inside a droid named R2-D2, who will serve no further purpose in this franchise, Luke decides to join Obi-Wan in a search and rescue mission for a princess that has been captured by Darth Vader and is being held on the Empire's battle station, the totally badass Death Star. After finding a ship in Mos Eisley, Luke, Obi-Wan, and our two droid friends are joined by two lovable scoundrels that pilot the Millennium Falcon, Han Solo and Chewbacca.
It's not wise to upset a Wookiee.
But sir, nobody worries about upsetting a droid.
It's because a droid don't pull people's arms out of their sockets when they lose. Wookiees are known to do that.
During their mission, Obi-Wan tells Luke that he is to become a Jedi Knight like his father before him if the rebellion is to have any chance in defeating Darth Vader and the Emperor. Luke starts his training, and the group is able to save the princess from the evil Empire.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Shut the hell up, Anakin. It's a bittersweet rescue, however, as Darth Vader appears to kill Obi-Wan with his lightsaber right in front of Luke. It's been a rough first movie for this kid. And it's clear from Vader's dialogue with Obi-Wan that there is definitely some kind of history between these two. But more on that later. After the rescue, the rebellion now has the schematics to the Death Star, as Princess Leia put them inside R2-D2 before being captured, and they are able to find a structural weakness. We then get one of the most iconic scenes in all of Star Wars with the trench run, and one of my personal favorite moments, when Luke hears Obi-Wan talking to him, and he trusts purely his instincts to nail the shot.
Use the Force, Luke. Let go, Luke.
After leaving earlier in the movie when he received his reward, like a scumbag, Han returns at the last second to save Luke's life, and the rebellion successfully destroys the Death Star. Luke and Han both receive medals, Chewbacca and the droids get snubbed, roll credits. Now this was obviously a super condensed version of the movie, only because I'm assuming about 95% of the people watching this has seen Star Wars. So I wanted to give a quick Spark Notes version of the movie and then go on to talk about the good and the bad. In the off chance that you haven't seen it, go watch it immediately. Why are you watching this? Like, shut this off, go watch that movie, then come back. Please come back. And just so everybody knows, these first two movies are gonna be overwhelmingly positive in my reviews, and then that ratio will start to shift the further we go on, with a few exceptions. But we'll get to those. And honestly, I don't even know where to begin as far as the positives for A New Hope, because not only does this film mean so much to me personally, but it also just did so much to push the genre and films in general forward. This wasn't the first sci-fi movie, it wasn't the first movie set in space, but it was the movie that brought sci-fi to a mainstream audience. This was a movie that showed you can take a story that's not overly complicated, a classic hero's journey, and can combine it with some next level sound design and special effects to make an absolute blockbuster. Like right from the opening scene, after that legendary title crawl, we just pan down to see this tiny rebel cruiser traveling through space. And right behind it comes this enormous Star Destroyer, nearly taking up the whole frame. And from a single shot, we just get this sense that the Empire has complete control over the rebels. Of course, it also helps elevate your story when you have all these characters that are relatable, likable, or at the very least, damn interesting. And Luke Skywalker as our main protagonist was a great choice as he is extremely relatable. Almost every person out there can relate to the feeling of just wanting to get away from home, wanting to make something of yourself, and just looking for your purpose. And while I'm glad this entire trilogy exists, I also think A New Hope works very well as just a one-off standalone film. Luke has an entire character arc and hero's journey just in this first movie. You know, he starts as this whiny kid just complaining about everything being unfair. I wonder where he got that from.
He's overly critical. He never listens. He doesn't understand. It's not fair.
How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair.
And by the end, he's just matured into a true hero. Han Solo is awesome, he's extremely charismatic, and he's a big personality to kind of contrast Luke, which is a little more quiet and mild-mannered. He has maybe the best character evolution out of anybody in the first movie, as when we first meet him, he's just extremely selfish and just worried about himself and his reward that he's gonna be getting. And by the end, of course, he comes back to help Luke in the rebellion. He's also great to have around when things go bad because he just seems to thrive in the chaos. And at a lot of times, he also acts as comedic relief along with the droids.
Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
And then speaking of the droids, I thought it was a great choice to have this movie begin from their perspective. In a movie where at the beginning they literally just like throw us right into it without explaining anything, we learn everything we need to about this war during those first couple minutes with the droids and just their banter back and forth. And if you're gonna have an exposition dump, I just thought this was a really creative and original way to do that. Anthony Daniels as C-3PO and Kenny Baker as R2-D2, they both just did a fantastic job of bringing these characters to life and just making them feel like part of the gang. They have this sort of comedic duo energy where they just work so well off each other, kind of like a Laurel and Hardy or an Abbott and Costello.
I've just about had enough of you. Go that way. You'll be malfunctioning within a day, you nearsighted scrap pile.
And not to mention, Luke and all of our main characters would have been dead so many times in these movies had it not been for R2-D2, a trend that will continue throughout the entire franchise. Princess Leia just has this certain sass and attitude about her, where she doesn't feel like a typical Disney movie damsel in distress, but rather a strong woman who is more than capable of taking care of herself.
Governor Tarkin, I should have expected to find you holding Vader's leash. I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
I take orders from just one person, me.
So wonder you're still alive.
In a time where movies didn't really have a lot of strong, independent women, it must have been such a breath of fresh air for all these women to go see Star Wars and see Princess Leia be a total badass. And then, of course, you can't talk about Star Wars, or really movies in general, without talking about our main antagonist, Darth fucking Vader.
Where are those transmissions you intercepted? What have you done with those plans? Where is the ambassador?
Find the rebels' hidden fort.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Just one of the greatest movie villains of all time. From the first time you just hear that breathing, yep, that's it. And then when he appears on screen, you just get these chills down your spine. It's hard to believe he came from this bullshit.
I'm haunted by the kiss that you should never have given me.
45 years later, this is still my favorite bad guy to ever be put on the big screen. He's methodical, he shows no mercy, and he's just so fucking cool and intimidating in all the right ways. And then aside from the special effects and the characters, George Lucas just did such a fantastic job with his world building, creating all of these planets and these different types of aliens that just let your imagination go wild. You know, in a time where sci-fi movies, everything was kind of presented as super clean. These planets, a lot of them felt dirty, they felt lived in. None of the aliens or creatures inhabiting these planets felt out of place. And I love how at the beginning of this movie, we're just thrown into this world. They don't hold our hand, they just give us like 3 paragraphs and a title crawl, kind of briefly explaining what we're getting into, and then they throw us right in the deep end and tell us to swim. Which I don't recommend if you're actually trying to teach somebody to swim. But in this case, it worked. Another thing you have to talk about with these movies is the score by John Williams. The original trilogy of Star Wars, all of them are still some of my favorite scores in cinema history. And it just transitions these scenes so seamlessly that it almost acts like another character in the movie. I get goosebumps every single time I watch Luke staring into the twin suns on Tatooine and the Force theme starts playing. And on top of the score, the sound design in this movie is just next level, with things like the firing up and the clashing of the lightsabers, the blaster rifles, and then just all of the scenes taking place in space. It really adds to the immersion when you have sound design that's this damn good. The truth is, I could go on and on about what these first 3 movies did so well, but in the interest of not making this a 90-minute video, let's go ahead and talk about a few of the bad. Now, I am obviously extremely biased towards this series, but to me, there's very little I dislike about the original trilogy. If I had to say anything about A New Hope specifically, I suppose some of the effects maybe don't hold up under a 2022 lens, but that is a criticism aimed more so at the special editions of these movies, where they added these unnecessary CGI creatures and dinosaurs in the background, and that terrible goddamn CGI Jabba the Hutt that had no reason to be in the movie other than fan service. It looks awful. Second, as far as negatives, this movie definitely has the weakest lightsaber duel, unless you're including The Last Jedi, which has 0 lightsaber duels, but we'll get there, we'll get there. And while it's an extremely emotional fight between 2 old friends turned enemies, the fight itself, it leaves a lot to be desired. It's not that exciting, especially with what we get in the prequels. But do yourselves a favor and go watch that fan-made video on YouTube of Obi-Wan and Vader fighting in A New Hope. That's pretty badass. And then my final negative would be an issue that will probably come up for every one of these George Lucas movies, because it's something that he has always struggled with, and he's even admitted this himself. There are times where the dialogue is clunky, and it definitely leaves a lot to be desired. And although the original trilogy's dialogue isn't nearly as bad as the prequels, at least in my opinion, there are still some rough moments. All in all though, A New Hope just marks the beginning of one of my favorite trilogies of all time. It just has this larger-than-life feel that's truly epic. It's fun, it has likable, relatable characters, it's well shot, the sound design and the score is some of the best in movie history, and it's just a damn good time beginning to end. I could watch this once a week and be completely happy. I have so much nostalgia for this trilogy, and that definitely plays into my ranking of these movies. Which, speaking of, I will eventually be ranking all 9 movies in the Skywalker saga after I finish my series review, so look forward to that. But that's gonna do it for my review of Star Wars: A New Hope. And oh yes, I'm gonna be using this lightsaber a lot during all of these reviews. So please let me know your ranking of all 9 of these films in the comments below. And also let me know if you saw this movie for the first time as an adult rather than a kid, and you don't have those nostalgia goggles like I do. Do you consider this movie to be overrated or just not that entertaining? Or do you still consider it one of the absolute best in the franchise? Also, while I have you, me and some friends do a pop culture podcast called Culture Shocked, and we did an episode on the original trilogy, we did an episode on the prequels, and we have an upcoming episode coming of the sequels, so you can check all those out, Culture Shocked, wherever you get your podcasts. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe right over here. And if you want to see some other movie reviews, rankings, and tier lists on my channel, I just got done ranking all the Batman live action films. You can see some of that right over here. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.